Hi guys, this is pilleater. I'm joined today with Twitter user Akane Yoshinaga. Hello Akane.
Hello.
So you're also now known as Asianarianism Boy on Twitter.
Yeah.
I like that. That's funny. We actually got in contact about, I think it might have been like 3 or 4 months ago when I was starting my Twitter, and since then we were meaning to do a podcast, and now we finally have the time to do the podcast. But it's finally nice to have you on, Akane.
Thank you. I'm happy to be on too.
So, a little about yourself. You have a Twitter, and you have over 2,000 followers, which is quite impressive for the Twitter user. Because if you have 1,000 or 2,000 more, at least you have some stable ground. Most people only have like less than 100 or 200. But
Yeah.
tell about why do you use Twitter, and what do you commonly do on Twitter?
Well, what I do now with my Twitter is I'm pretty, as you probably tell, a bit random with my stuff. It's all about my interests. Pretty much a personal account now. Um, Obviously, this isn't my main account. Well, it is now, but I've been here since 2013 on Twitter, and it's kind of changed my purposes on what my account does. First of all, I started off as I mean, I don't regret it, but I used to be a role play account, and I was young there, so I that's why I did it. And then when I started to grow up, I became a shit poster, and I joined a group of people on Twitter who used to troll and stuff like that, and it was a lot of fun. But now, after that died down, I pretty much just tweet what the hell I think and stuff like that. It's just like this is what I'm feeling, or this is my interest, and that's it. It's pretty much why I use Twitter.
Well, that's interesting you mentioned role playing. I mean, I'm not gonna lie myself. When I was pretty young, I would go on Omegle and would role play, and because Omegle has like sex role play, and you could go on Omegle and go like fantasy role play or whatever. And
Yeah.
I mean, not that I would do that as a habit, but I know some friends who are just like the most introverted people ever, but then they go on the internet and have these extremely bizarre role play fantasy. Once in a while I'll come across a anime or a yaoi forum, which is
Yeah.
based entirely on role playing to some sexual degree or to some escapism. But could you talk more about like that role playing culture, about with people pretending they're anime characters?
Well, to be honest, at first it was anime because this is when I was actually getting into anime, this role play. But as it continued, I actually went to Resident Evil as my own OC kind of character. What that entailed was like action stuff like that. I mean, I know people do sexual RPs and that's what you did, but it was kind of like a side thing where it's like we have that on the side because in real life people do that kind of shit, and but we also had like plots and stories to do, and it's something that's probably sparked my creativity still now, even after 4 years since I've RP'd. And yeah, I have to say it's changed a lot. It's dead now. It's pretty much why I left in 2014, I think it was. Yeah, so it's definitely changed.
Now, I find it's interesting that most of the comments, the content you retweet, are usually anime, Japanese models,
Hmm.
interesting art that people do, some interesting stuff as well, and I kind of do the same thing on my Twitter as well. I mean, instead
Yeah,
of writing original content, I tend to press the retweet button a lot, but it's kind of there's this divide between writing original stuff where I could go on Twitter and write Lee Park was poppin' because everybody knows Unite the Right was there at Lee Park, and I just
yeah,
got back from that. Everybody knows, so everybody likes that. And versus if I retweet a Japanese model I like, then it's like, oh well, it's there, but pilleater likes it. So you kind of become a
yeah.
DJ of like cultural content.
Mm.
So do you think it's more effective to write tweets, or is it more like retweeting stuff and getting stuff out there? Because it definitely has to do with aesthetics as well. I think the aesthetic part is
Mm.
very important.
Yeah. By what you mean? Do you mean like to be more popular online or like
I mean,
because
I always find that. I mean, I should be writing more tweets, but instead I just
mm,
link my Twitter to my YouTube, and whenever I make a new YouTube or this and that SoundCloud, it just does it for me. But when I do
mm,
tweets, it's probably what I have to say, or just
mm,
things I appealingly aesthetically like. And I think those aesthetics have of important cultural power about how people,
mm.
even if we're saying role playing or how people think about things. I mean, I mean, I just want some thoughts on what you find appealing of your aesthetic imagery, what you retweet.
I get it from a lot of people about my aesthetic of my account is a lot of people like that I'm very straight to the point and I just say what I want, if you know what I mean. Like it's a trait a lot of people say they like about me, and that's most. Like I tweet about what I think I'm thinking at the time, and so yeah, like for example, the Asian Arianism thing, and how I have a huge dislike to white females, and obviously I have a huge like to Asian females, and stuff like that. And a lot of people do agree on it, and I do have some also white friends, a male, who agree with me on my points on white females of this generation. Is They are quite appalling. I mean, I do have white female friends, but like I don't like outright hate them to the point where I don't speak to them. It's just that if they were a dating option, I definitely wouldn't take it.
Were you ever interested in the whole MGTOW or men's rights or manosphere movement at all?
Uh, I'm very central about everything, if you know what I mean. Like I can understand your like people's point of views about that kind of stuff. And MGTOW was it? I only
Yes.
just learned about it recently from
Oh,
my friend Alex. And to be honest, I can see like how that is a good thing. I mean, I would definitely do it if I like wanted to. Like I can see why it would do. I'll just later on date someone then when you're happy in life, and yeah, I can see why people take it, and it's like I respect people who do it. I don't like mock or like if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. But for me, it's like I'm not too serious about it. If you know what I mean, it's just like I'm very neutral on the whole thing.
well, yeah, it's interesting because the whole men's rights, MGTOW or manosphere,
Mm,
especially reading content like Return of the Kings, it's pretty much an eye opener, especially if you want to call it a part of this movement of guys just waking up to facts about realities of things. I mean,
mm,
one of my favorite books is Sexual Utopia and Power by F. Roger Devlin, where he pretty much argues why it's really bad, especially in the it's not only in America but as well if anybody under the Western power. It's white women on average, become feminist and they're rotten in behavior, and it is really hurting white reproduction rates, and it's creating
mm,
this in-group hostility. And the alphas get all the females, so it's like sexual liberation to the woman has created this chaos. And so there's a lot of people who are MGTOW, men going their own way, or like menimists, or men who just drop out of the
mm,
sexual market because they feel they don't need women. There's also the gamer types, the pickup artists like Rushfi, who think, well, you just got to break this matrix and act like a male thought and get thoughts in bed and then do the family stuff later on. And then we have this whole people of trads who aren't Christian. So you get the point. There's these
Yeah.
whole ideals, and I feel like this this common dislike for the white female, the white
Mm.
female today, the Americanized white female. It's really, I think, justified, or at least there's reasons why I see so many. If I could put it in my own terms, beta young people, probably from the ages of like 18 to 23, and they got Asian girlfriends at least. And I see the same thing with Asian males and white females, because there's a group of nerdy white females who are not preps or Stacys, but are pretty much they're too much into feminism, or they're too much into their own autism, and Asian males get with them too. But the point is, it seems like people who look like for that trad or good life go with the next best thing. And for that case, I think of Asian Aryanism as this solution, at least for that whole MGTOW movement. If only MGTOW could understand that, a world outside the Western, the culture and more trad life of any of the Asian, especially Northeast or Southeast Asian women, however, there is that freedom. And I think people know that, and they want to live the good life, so they make those choices. I just think Asian Aryanism is happening from that, because people just don't want to bring it up. It's just more problems. That's kind of how I see it. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I completely agree with that. The reason why I like Asian women is because they are brought up a completely different way from us. Like, I mean, that's an obvious thing to say, because we're West, they're East. Um, so that's why I like it, because they are brought up to be. I don't want to sound like rude, but like they are brought up to be not like women, but they're just brought up to be sensible, like we are as men. Like, we're meant to, like, we're the provider. We help the one that we love and stuff like that. But in the Western side, where the women are pretty much taught to like cheat, or you know use men for their money, stuff like that. And it's a chaos pretty much in the Western side. And I can see why men now like want to go for an Asian girlfriend from the East, because they are what people expect women here to be like. And yeah, I can see why they go for the East side, because that's why I'm there. But I'm not MGTOW, but yeah.
I also think it's true that, especially a lot of millennials, being in that generation, a lot of young millennials have grown up watching anime, and anime has a perceived different reality of everything nice, having beautiful aesthetics, having the Eastern aesthetic as well. And you see a lot of, especially young white millennials, adopting those trends, whether it be at the typical anime nerd convention with cosplay, and they think they are anime characters. And to me, that's signaling they want to escapism, or they want to have a world that is different from the decadence of today. And
Yeah.
it shows you how powerful anime has that aesthetic, and people are also role playing that aesthetic out. And what is your, I guess, your favorite animes, or what animes do you think are culturally significant for people to get into Asian Aryanism?
Oh, on the spot. Probably. I know this is going to sound like a weird one, but Ghost in the Shell.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I just saw that in theaters, and we said the same thing when I was in the theater with my friend. We were just talking
yeah.
about that and saying, "Oh yeah, especially live action. Go, Scarlett Johansson is this, and she's
Mm,
Asian on the inside, but outside she goes in the shell." Making these metaphorical, even though it was just a live action adaptation
yeah.
of the series or the movie. I know what you're saying. It's I can
Mm.
see that.
Well, I mean, like the anime more than, because I haven't actually watched the live action yet, because I'm a very skeptical, and because I'm actually a huge fan of the old one. Um, from what I got from it, people look at and perceive like cyberpunk and stuff like that, and because it's set in Japan, and a lot of it made me want, because they are, how do I explain it? The aestheticism of it, is just appealing, and that's what, not the cyberpunk, but like the whole Asian culture and stuff. And I know it's futuristic, and it's really hard to explain, but that's how I see it. It's just that's what made me like think, they're very traditional, even in future, um, that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's also true that it's also to. I think there seems to be a interesting war right now. I call it a culture war, where if you were to ask any of these people, I say Asianarianism. We could say Euro-Asianism, Eurasianism, animeism, whatever. If I go
Mm,
up to nerds and just say white male, Asian female, or white male, white female weebs, and I say weeb nationalism, Asianarianism, you want this new world envision, they think of me like a nut or some crazy guy or don't tread on me,
mm,
and they don't want to bring up the subject. And that's it's this form of not coming to the side and realizing how true it is, where it's this clash between, I guess, Eastern culture and Western cultural appropriation, where there are literally white people like from anime rights, which would suggest, well, we like jerking off to hang tie and we like anime, but in the end we want a white wife and white children, but we
mm,
want to be identified with Japanese culture, which seems obviously nutty. I think it doesn't
mm.
make any.
I agree. I
And
don't see it as
I
an
had a
actual like
conflict with one of the people on that too, and they're not important at all. But it kind
no.
of just got anime rights no longer. But the point is that you do see that, especially at anime conventions, they think irrationally, just like white liberals who live in gated communities. They think
Mm,
that they're going to for multicultural and diversity, and they want everybody brown, but it turns out they preserved their white interest by hanging out with other white liberals. And so same thing happens with these nerds who adopt the Japanese culture aspect and want to be anime characters, but they want to be white Westerners who shop at Trader Joe's and plaid shirts and whatever. And yet there's also a side like maybe our interest where, and I see this a lot too, especially if you take an Asian studies course in college, there are literally people who think Eastern culture is everything and anime is just a byproduct of it, and therefore you have to learn Japanese and engulf in Japanese, and it's a synergy, or at least that Asianarianism also comes from, it's not one-sided, it's bicultural, meaning it's both Western white interest and as well, you could say Japanese, Chinese, Korean, Southeast Asian, whatever. Say, for instance, if you like anime, more of the Japanese side in respect to those cultures and traditions. That's
mm,
why I advocate and say, go watch NHK World, because pretty much everyone from that host from Japanology, Peter Barakin, from Maxwell Powers, that announcer, and any host on NHK World is a byproduct of Asianarianism. Really,
mm.
that's what I envision. So, what do you think about that whole, I guess, cultural appropriation versus interest in becoming assimilation to that culture?
Right. So, like from my opinion, from the culture appropriation thing, I I can see where some people like don't like it, and some people that are kind of like, well, culture appropriation is stupid. You can enjoy people's culture. You can, go to Japan and do all the activities they have there. It's just at the point is when you fetishize it. I mean, like you're
Yeah.
saying you're Japanese, and it's kind of like, please don't say that. Like, just enjoy that. Like going to a different country, enjoying that culture. Um, like the way I perceive anime and stuff, I never really like, expected Japan to be like that. I always take stuff like with a pinch of salt. I'm a very realist person. Like I'm not going to think, oh, I saw this in anime, so it's going to be exactly like that. Um, no, I know it's a very worky country where everyone pretty much works. There's like low birth rate, stuff like that. It's not a beautiful paradise as people think it is. But yeah, it's just that I think cultural appropriation is a stupid thing unless people are saying like I'm Japanese, but they're white or black or any of the other thing that isn't Japanese or Korean, all that kind of stuff.
You've also mentioned fetish. I think that's interesting because I've wrote some articles about that myself, about the whole fetishizing thing.
Mm,
How do you? It seems like that's an obstacle right now. That if you have a preference or a type or interest, and you say you like
mm,
Asian women or women that likes Asian men, or on the half you like white men, white women, it seems like, oh,
mm.
you're just fetishizing it. You really don't.
Yeah,
And if you're fetishizing it, you better stay with your own race. So how
yeah.
is that? how do you, I guess, overcome the fetish obstacle, and how would you define the whole fetish thing?
I think it's stupid, the whole you're fetishizing a race. Well, I can see it in some points, but like people have said to me, I fetishize Asian women. But I normally escalate my like love or whatever for Asian women as a joke on like Twitter and to my friends because I've obviously grown up from 2013, I think it was. That's when I discovered K-pop, and I think it was like the first time I ever like looked at an Asian girl and I thought, wow, she's insanely attractive. And it kind of carried on from there, and it progressed. I think it was around 2015. I just, I quotation marks got that yellow fever, and yeah, and the whole fetish thing is something I've always been told, and I don't think it's a natural thing. I mean, if you're like proper like, how do I say it without shooting myself in the foot? Because I know I say I hate white women and stuff like that, and I do because they are brought up terribly in the Western side of the world and stuff like that. But um, it's basically you could just say it's a preference. It's not fetishizing. Like I just swap those words around. It's a lot of a nicer way of saying it, and it isn't negative. Like I say, I'm a preference for Asians. I'm not fetishizing them because I don't just prefer to date them because of the way they're brought up and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's also true that most people, the normies, are not going to get into it. It's like they'll
Mm,
go so far as to realize that's true. Like if I go in my city, one thing I do with my friends, I go white male, Asian female, wamafel, wamafel. I point it out. It's
mm,
a growing number. It's same with mafel, Asian male, white female, or even
mm,
Eurasians. I point it out all the time. It's true, and yet they don't want to see it's happening. Or if you interrogate
mm,
these couple, they don't want to bring it up. It's almost everybody's playing this silent game. So I guess how would you? I say yellow pill. If people say red pill, you see bigger truths. I think of yellow pill as a way to get them on Asian Arianism. How would you, I guess, yellow pill the people who are blind to the cause of Asian Arianism?
that's quite funny because I've obviously grown up in the UK. UK is quite racy, and I know people say no, we're not, but they kind of are. I grew up with liking Asians, and obviously, as I told you, and my friends didn't understand it, and they would obviously use racial slurs when they saw me looking at K-pop and stuff like that, and having Asian K-pop girls as my wallpaper and stuff like that. Using the C word and saying they're ugly and like the entire race is ugly. They all look the same. In college, I remember a person saying to me, he was trying to like he is very dense, but like he can sometimes be smart at times. Like he said to me, he was trying to be smart with me, saying, "Oh, how do they tell Asian babies apart?" And I said, "Well, they obviously get name tagged before they get put in a room full of babies, so they can find it." And obviously, he was thinking that I was going to be like, "Oh, I don't know," but even then. All babies look the same. Even white babies look exactly the same. Like, I don't understand why it has to be just Asian and black. And anyway, babies are just fat lumps. So when they're born, they don't have facial features. But that's when he tried to be smart with me and that. But carrying on the yellow pill, I yellow pilled a friend who was very racist to Asians when I first met him, and we became friends. But after a while, I would send him Japanese models and stuff like that, and he slowly began to turn and now finds Asians insanely attractive. So that's how I basically yellow pilled him, and he's like okay with them, and he doesn't mind if I send him stuff, and yeah, stuff like that. I think he's the only one I've ever yellow pilled though. My friend is very my friend Brad. He's very white only. He's not racist, but he just says he finds white women only attractive. And when I send him Asians that I think are attractive, and my friend as well, he will say, "Nah, she's ugly" and stuff. And I'll just be like, "Well, I know that's your preference, but like he's so resistant of anything that isn't white, basically."
It's also true that they they people who have these preferences, there is this kind of end all argument with the whole ideal of multiculturalism and diversity. It
Mm,
seems that, for one, a white Asian relationship would be bicultural, and that it's a bicultural movement. You have two parties and they share each other, and they have one, I guess if you want to call it race or group of people, they go by white, Asian, Eurasian, and they all mingle together, and that's Asianarianism. And eventually, maybe they might create a future anime people offspring from that. But the point is that when a liberal, typical white liberal dates someone who's non-white, they think it has something to do with the benefit of multiculturalism, when really the majority of these white liberals, 14% of American relationships in 2015 by the Pew Research Center states that 14% of it was, white male, Asian male, white female. That was that was a huge chunk, and black was a low 4%. It's amazing. Wow. And so in 2015 they say multiculturalism, but you say, that basically creates this whole cuck behavior of saying, well, my Eurasian son or daughter, he could be with whatever. He can go and find someone who's black, right? And yet they don't, there's this bond, right? People go with people like themselves. It seems like multiculturalism ignores the aspect of, I prefer to be with these types of people. And it's really a source of tension and conflict. And it really is a part of putting the blinders on, the veneer. So when Asianarianism is happening, like YouTube star Roaming Millennial, when she says this has nothing to do with race, it's multiculturalism, and she prefers to be in white and Asian relationships only, then it's quite suspicious. I mean, that's how I think about the whole multicultural thing about it.
Yeah.
If I can have thoughts on that.
The whole multicultural thing, I completely agree with you on that. It's like, that's what I mean. Is that people don't understand that it's not the society telling you to do it. It's what the person feels like they want to go with. Like, I know my dad probably wants me to date a white woman and stuff like that, but I just aren't attracted to them and stuff. And my mum wants me to date a black girl. I think she does anyway. There was a weird story back then that she wanted me to have a baby with a black woman because they have better kids, but that was a long time ago. So yeah, they expect me to go for like the normal traditional sense, and that's how society sees it. In England, everyone is supposed to go with a white person and stuff like that. And if it's different, then you're weird, and it's really stupid and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, I do believe in an important sense of individualism. Therefore, if you're responsible, but I find that multiculturalism suggests that it's too much extreme individualism and not about collectivism. And I think it's okay and it's important to be Asianarian and to be open about that. And I think, I think people need to make whatever you want to call it, Asianarianism or not. I think there needs to be this side that goes beyond multiculturalism, that criticizes the liberal world, the liberal established world, because people are growing up and they're making boundaries, and it's better to live by the truth. And I think if people were more open with who they associate with, I think, Asianarianism would be much more accessible. And I think it is slowly happening now with the whole alt-right movement. But I guess, what are your thoughts on the whole alt-right issue? Because it seems like the alt-right really red-pilled a lot of people in the faction. People, they say, well, that's just a racist movement. But the point is, people also say it's red-pilling, it's opening up to facts, and to complete criticism of the globalized neoliberal world. I mean, if you have any thoughts on that, the alt-right?
My thoughts on the alt-right are that, like, it's very splinter, like, as the left are. Like, there are too many subgroups that believe in their own separate things. I can understand where they're coming from as a whole, because I used to think the alt-right were very Asianarianism, but when I found that out, when I used to post, because I used to post Asian girls on my Twitter account, but now I do it on a different account. But when I did, I posted mixed-raced Asian girls, and apparently some alt-right didn't like that I did that, and they attacked me. Obviously, I thought they were kidding at first, but they actually weren't. They were saying, like, look, this is what it's meant to be, white with white only. And I was like, no. So that's why I'm saying it's very splintered, because I can agree with some of it, but I can't agree with all of it. I'm very centralist with my political the spectrum. I can lean to the left and I can lean to the right, but I can safely say that the left is very deranged, but sometimes the right can make themselves look like idiots at times. But I totally understand them as well. There are a few Asian areas and Aryanism in the alt-right that I knew. I think they were in our group chat when we had the Asian Aryanism group chat, like Jotaro, I think his name was,
Oh
and
yeah, Jataro's
other
a nice
people.
guy. So
Yeah.
I have yet to love to meet up with him IRL. We keep in contact. Recently on the Discord's servers, which I'm active on, I was recently invited over onto Hiding in My Room, which is a YouTube account by this one Eurasian guy, kind of geeky, and there's about how many people? There is over 100 people or 80, 91 people, and they all agree with the whole Asian Aryan concept, and I think it's amazing. They just invited me over, and I have to. I wanted him on my podcast, Dan. Oh, he just said sorry. He's a little shy guy, but I'll have him on the podcast soon, Daniel. But they pretty much agree with everything we're saying, but he does it in a more, if you want to say, PC way, or at least
Mm,
general audience way. But it's
right.
there. The audience is there, and he's doing a great job rounding it up. I guess I'm a little more radical. And but the but the thing is, the whole the alt right, they're really set on this ideal of they're taking Martin Heidegger to a level that's too extreme and saying, well, you just got to be natural with yourself and you got to go white female. It's for biological nature and you can't exploit the happiness of life. And there's a lot of plot hole problems, I mean, with the alt right. But the thing I
Mm,
like though about it is that Richard Spencer says there'll be ethnostate ideals. Like there'll be a white ethnostate, a black ethnostate, an Asian ethnostate. If that was to ever come true as a replacement for multiculturalism and diversity, then obviously there has to be, I guess, bicultural ethnostates or the Discord server becoming IRL.
mm,
And that's interesting to think about. A lot of people get offended because that means gas chambers and stuff like that, but it's not really. It's about this ideal of associating with people like yourself and being true to one's nature. And I always thought, if we were to use the logic of the alt right, then obviously bicultural people or people of that persuasion deserves to be in that area of people like themselves.
mm,
I always think like if as I talked to the Forgotten Nationalist on the other podcast, she's a white advocate. I'm a white advocate because we want to see white people strive, and as well Asian advocates because we want them to strive, but as well as a HAPA advocate ultimately because that's who we are, or at least that's what we want to be around. It's like stuff white people like mixed with mixed with Asian Aryanism, so all this stuff so it can have the ball rolling where everybody's accommodated. That's how I kind of see everything that's happening.
yeah. This is exactly how I do as well.
I have yet to write that Asian Aryan Manifesto book. I mean, I certainly have articles, but when people ask me it, I mean, I was at being just a little report when I was at Unite the Right. I had 5 people come up to me knowing I was pilleater, simply doing the YouTube. Yeah, because of the YouTube stuff, and also it was really nice to give out books to Andy Nowicki, of the podcast of Alternative Right, just having a chat with him. A lot of
Yeah.
crazy stuff went on, but you know, uh, people ask me how would this Asian Aryanism thing go down if that's and I think to myself I should collect my articles and make because I always keep repeating these future ideals. I mean,
Mm,
I'm pretty sure you've heard of my Burroughs ideal where, okay, in the Asian Aryan ethno state, the size of an Amish community of 1,000 or more people will be four boroughs. There'll be the white male, white female borough, that want to be Japanese or Asian. They're weebs. There'll be the Asian male, Asian female borough that want to be Western or white. They're kind of whitewashed or whatever. You have the
mm,
white male, Asian female, a mothel, interracial barrel of just like they're interracial couples and they're practicing that. And then you have the Eurasian bro where they come from just Eurasian blood, whether that be like Central Asia or just mixed or whatever. And you have all those 4 groups race mixing with one another or just going
mm,
at it, then you can, and they're like this ideal where we're all Asian Aryan, then I think something could move from that. And that whole entryism where any people can come in the country, Asian, white, or Eurasian. So as long it's like a new Americanism, really. That's how I look of it. But
Pretty much, yeah.
what are your thoughts? How would you govern an ideal Asian Aryan ethnic state or board or community? And what rules or principles should one follow to make sure things are swift and people are loyal and it doesn't become decadent or crazy?
Uh, I do have a thought, and that is that I think, if I can say this before I explain, because it relates to it, and that's that I think whites and Asians, because in my eyes, Asian Aryanism is that the a Asian and a white person, like offspring, are not like a master race, but probably like the best for the course of humanity, if you know what I mean. Like if I was saying if I wanted to make my own state, like you said, I would definitely have it more Asian and whites only. But I'm not being racist. I mean, it's not racist because it's just an ideal, an idea, and that is that I would have a community that is primarily Asian and white, male and female, and Asian male and female. So it would breed like you could say a new like entire like race, because I know that Eurasians aren't as popular as in like there aren't many of them, if you know what I mean. I'm not being like weird. Sorry. Like there are less than there are like white, black, Asian and Latina and all that are all main races. You know what I mean? Like they're the big ones. Eurasians are the smaller population. That's it. Population. That's what I mean. Population. So that way we could grow that, because I believe that Eurasians are the next step for white people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean certainly I could certainly see that with this whole millennial, even Gen X, Eurasian, Amawful dating, they're going to have Eurasian kids. And people like your roaming millennial are already having cultural power and persuasion over this niche. And the good life that follows the liberal narrative, they're going to have a crash when alt-right or this whole criticism against the neoliberal world happens. And they're going to have to call their own voice, and they're going to have to take that Asian Aryan side, and it's going to be an accidental creation. They're trying to live this life as if the new good life is white, Eurasian, anime is realism, and I think that's what slowly has been happening. And I'm just planning for the future on that. And I think what needs to be done is the yellow pill process and just making unifications and writing this stuff down. Because I remember in the 90s when I was like young and like 8 years old and watching Techi Muyo on Toonami, I was already having these Asian Aryan thoughts, but I didn't have the words to say them in. But I think it's there, and people who are teenagers or in their early 20s do it all the time. Geeky white beta guys think they're anime characters to an anime nobody's watching, and somebody should seize on that community and knowing they're not the only one. That selfishness needs to be this collective ideal of seeing other guys and other gals as the same interest, and I think that needs to be done. I think that's the most important step. Now, I know, of course, Asian Aryanism, the third Aryan is like this master race thing. It's a meme, and it does work. Yeah. But whatever that future name is, Euro-Asianism or Asianism or Animeism, I think Asian Aryanism is a little punk and avant-garde at the same time. But I think, whatever that is in the future, I think it's going to happen. And I don't know. I hope it. I don't know what to expect.
It's going to happen very slowly, because there is quite a bit of hostility to mostly only. It's a bit hypocritical because I know a lot of Asian guys hate when Asian females date white males, but it's okay if an Asian dude dates a white woman. That's the same hypocrisy with like white men can't date anyone else and stuff like that. And I don't know why. I don't actually. I only started seeing it after you brought it up, and I think it was Asian Girl for White Gods. I think it was.
Oh yeah, Alice.
She brought it up that there is a lot of hostility between it, and that's why you guys wanted to make a safe place. And I didn't know that because I've always grown up I'm like pretty much the only like white guy that's into Asians around my area, apart from obviously the guy I told you, but he'd rather date white people, but he still likes now finds Asians attractive. But I'm pretty much the only white person I know around here that would fully submit to Asian Arianism, and that's why I've never noticed any hostility. I mean, I have told you that they've been racist about what K-pop girls I look at and shit like that, but I don't count that as an actual like offense because they're not like attacking something that's like a real relationship. But when I was shown or looked up stuff, there is a lot of Asian guys hate it a lot. And I do laugh, and because it's like, yeah, I guess you got cucked in a way. I mean, I do look up online WAMAF, white male, Asian female. That a lot of it is it's kind of very. This is my opinion. I've just seen as it's very how white women like black men because of their build and their genital size, blah blah blah. Well, I've noticed that a lot of Asian women like white men because of the same reason. Did I say Asian men? I meant white men. Sorry. A lot of Asian female like white men because of that, and they're a lot more alpha in a way as well. I mean, my girlfriend likes me because of my. She said she. I'll quote her. I know she's going to kill me if I say that, but she said that she doesn't like Asian guys because they have small penises, and that's why she likes me because I'm white and I.
Well, there's
Yeah, you
nothing
get the
wrong with
picture.
that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
I know tons of other Asian girls who think the same way now. I think that's
Mm,
just yeah, that's an interesting cultural trend as well. I don't think there's
mm.
anything wrong with that. Now, I understand that
Um,
there are some silly SJWs who will attack that and say, "Oh, it's unjust," but
yeah.
actually, no, that's just a part of the, the cultural measure balance going on. Because I'm a
Yeah.
pretty fair guy because I also have to say there are as well Asian males going after white females, and because there are
Mm.
white females who watch K-pop and they look at the Korean men
Yeah,
and
that's
they think, and the
definitely.
Asian man also has a benefit in that relationship because he can be himself, his intellectual self, and as well get with an Asian woman and have this kind of, if I could say, Asian patriarchy. I like to use that
Mm,
and say and get that the Western side onto that. I mean, if you have a like Eurasian son or daughter, they're still gonna have both that interest of white and Asian, even whatever the outcome may be, white male, Asian female, or Asian male, white female, you get the same results. And so I wouldn't be, too. A lot of people say, "Oh, that's just bad and imbalanced." And it's like, no, it's not. I think it's just a connecting thing. I mean, I try to. I'm just saying I'm not a self-hating guy. I mean, I get
mm.
when I understand that, such as MGTOW, the whole the men going their way say they just hate women in general. Now,
Yeah.
I'm more like I don't hate, but I do believe that there are bad situations where you know most people don't like white women, white
Mm,
intellectual guys, is because it's terrible, it's evil, and even if you have traumas or things on an individual level not to prefer them, it's still there are a lot of reasons not to go on white women, and the
mm,
same with and yeah, I just think that's a rare case. I mean, not a rare case, but I think yeah, that's interesting. The very Americanized, you want to say whitewashed Asian American woman when she says she doesn't like Asian guys. It's usually
mm,
because they're not Americanized enough or they're not onto the white standard. But there is
mm,
also as well a lot of whitewashed Americanized Asian guys who are basically like jocks and chads and get a lot of
mm.
action too that nobody talks about as well. But
Yeah.
it's weird because there's a lot of different persuasions that go on. But I think a couple is really happy when they're open about talking about racial issues, and I think that's actually a good thing. I mean, on that level, I think being white male, Asian female, and you both talk about race in a healthy way is a good thing to connect because you go beyond those things, or you have a bond where I think, from what I understand, that there's also this happiness of having your Asian children or
Mm.
children on that side or whatever.
Yeah. I agree with that.
But thinking of other things to talk about, I also think oh, what was it on the? I was thinking of oh, I was having this talk. I mean, what was your thoughts on the whole like race play issue? I mean, I have a heated discussion with some of my friends on this. Race play is basically like in a teasing manner. You're like, oh, you're a chink, you can't drive, and it's like you're racist, but you do it in a soft sell way, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
you're a white boy, you have fetish, you're probably joining the KK, and do. I see a lot of these couples do this in the
Yeah.
Americanized, yeah, but they do it in a strange way, and then the geeky couples who are based upon Netflix and chill and hugs and cuddles, they don't do that because they don't want to hurt other people's feelings.
Yeah.
But I guess what is your relationship stance on that? And I guess what would be dating advice for someone to get with someone of that, white and Asian relationship?
Yeah. Basically, the whole race play thing, I'm totally fine with. Like, my girlfriend has mocked me for having an Asian fetish, as she puts it, and
Yeah,
I'm
that's
totally
race
fine
play,
with
yeah.
it. It's funny. Yeah.
Hmm.
And I mock her for liking white guys because Asian guys are beta, and I don't. I get if someone's going to be in the comments like, "Oh, shut the fuck up," but that's pretty much true. Like that's what most of them, the reason why they go to white guys. But I digress. Um, what was the other question? Oh yeah, dating advice. That was it. Um, from my experience, it relies mostly on looks, and I don't mean it for myself. My girlfriend's very judgmental, but I know the Asian community can be very judgmental due to them being grown up like you need to be this kind of thing or stuff like that. And she's pointed stuff out like that for me, and she liked me because of how I was attracted to her, and now she likes me a lot more because of my personality, and it's the same with me for her. Um, yeah, like advice wise, I from my own experience, it's just that if you feel like you're not getting anywhere or stuff like that, the best thing is to do is maybe in the nicest way possible hit the gym or something, or like so like if maybe change your style, that works out. I mean, I've had the same style for years and I've dated so like a lot of people, but not many Asians because I don't hang around in Asian community parts of like the internet or in real life because I live in a very primarily white area. Which sucks because when I used to live with my dad, there was a lot of Asians around, but because I was so separated from them in different classes, it was hard for me to, converse with them and stuff like that. Apart from like maybe an Asian male that I made friends with when I was at college. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much what this is just my own experience, kind of like advice. They're human beings, they're not like just how you would with a normal girl talk to them. But they're just like you remember that they are brought up differently from us, and that's why you shouldn't take anything they say seriously. They might say something that's offensive, but it isn't offensive to them because that's just how they've been brought up. So that's kind of how I learned from being her. At first, I was a bit like, whoa. And then after a while, I was kind of like, I'm maybe taking it a bit personally, but I kind of understand where she's coming from because she's brought up that way.
I like that. That's very interesting. I like that. But I guess one more thing to ask is do you plan on keep on using Twitter and just spreading around Asian Arianism, or do you actually plan on blogging in the future, doing something, or do you think the cultural warfare is on Twitter and you just have to persuade people about Asian Arianism or some type of ideology, and that's how you get people on our side?
Hmm. Uh, it's quite difficult for me because I'm very mellow. Like if you don't like Asians, then I guess you're okay, but I will still post it. It's kind of like it's a what's the word? It's when someone retweets something and you look at it and you can get influenced by it because of like maybe popularity or it's an interest of yours. That's how you can yellow pill someone. Like if I post Asians constantly, it's probably how I can use a reference as my friend when I kept posting it to him, even though he said I almost said it then, the C word. Uh, he said they were. I just said chinks and stuff. I was kind of like I wasn't too triggered about it. Like I was just like he's very I love him, but he's like low IQ in a way, like stuff like that.
Oh
They're
yeah.
normally they're very racist, and but he likes Asians now. He finds them very attractive, and that's how I got him was through spamming him with pictures and that. Um, and so I can use Twitter to do that as well. But pretty much because my community is like it is how it is. It takes like people to follow me, new people to follow me to like convert them, and I noticed that they do. Anyway, like Asians. That's why I have another account called Ashen Aesthetics, I think it was. which is actually kind of a play on words through a dark soul thing. It kind of sounds like Asian aesthetics. So that's why I post Asians. And a lot of people that I don't follow and people who follow me newly follow that account because they like Asians. And that's the best way to do it, is to yellow people through influence, which is what most people do nowadays.
I also like it too because it like envisions like an Asian Aryan city or a society. Yeah. I think it's more than just people; it's also landscape as well, which is great.
Because they do it in advertisements, not Asian Aryanism. A lot of adverts in the UK are very, actually in general, adverts these days, a lot of white female, black male, and I don't really understand that. It's very not cuckery, but like I can tell they're trying to like enforce diversity relationships, and it's kind of like, if you want to do that, how about switching up a bit, maybe a white male with a black woman, or maybe a white male with an Asian woman, stuff like that, you know? But it seems like the core thing they're going for is black male with a white female, and I think they should really, because it's like I'm a bit alt-righty, but not at all. That's why I said I'm central, and like I believe that if you're going to want diversity, then you need to change it up. Like, I don't understand why black and white have to be the icon of diversity when it could easily be the most popular, as you said, Asian and whites. They are the most popular ones to mix. But yeah, that's just how they do it. And I think that's probably why they do it, is because it's so low. As you said, it's 4%, I think it was. Mm-hmm. Probably why they enforce it, because pretty much every UK ad that I see is a black guy with a white woman. It's never ever anything different.
Yeah. I think we covered a lot, and it's nice to talk to you, Akane Yoshinaga. Yeah. So your Twitters is at twitter.com/Akane Yoshinaga. No, Akane Yoshinaga. My Japanese is so butchered. And you also have two other Twitters at Norlanda Ho, right? And Asian Aesthetics as well.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice talking to you, Akane, and I hope to speak with you next time.
Yeah, it was really nice to finally actually speak to you after this time.
Yes.